Welcome to Daily Wisdom from the Flippening podcast. These episodes feature short, to-the-point clips from our full-length interviews. We talk to the men and women behind the trades, crypto exchanges, and regulations with the goal of helping you become a better, more informed investor.
Hi, I'm Michael Kaplan, editor of the Flippening podcast. Today's episode is taken from a 2018 conversation with Stephen McKeon, economist and professor of finance at the University of Oregon's Lundquist School of Business. We discuss use cases for stablecoins and Stephen's view that they represent the clearest path to mass cryptocurrency adoption. For the full conversation, check out Flippening episode 19. This episode has two sponsors. The first sponsor is Nexo, which offers instant crypto credit lines. Check them out at nexo.io. Our second sponsor is the Nomics cryptocurrency market cap and data API for institutions, fintech apps, and funds. Without further ado, here's our conversation with Stephen McKeon from the Lundquist School of Business. Enjoy.
Having spoken with you a bit, I think the best entry point into this discussion is an overview of your thoughts on stablecoins. I've had lots of guests on this show, and opinions are really varied on this topic, to say the least. But to be fair, most of the people I've had on this show are viewing stablecoin through the lens of an investment opportunity rather than a lever for economic change. As an economist, Stephen, what are your thoughts on stablecoins?
I'm so glad you asked me this, because stablecoins are probably the one thing I talk about almost as much as security tokens and traditional asset tokens. And I guess the TLDR version is that we need one. Stablecoins elicit strong opinions from both proponents and skeptics, and a lot of that debate centers around feasibility, particularly with the algorithmic versions. But I've also seen people ask, why do we need a stablecoin? So let me address that. And just to be clear, my definition of a stablecoin would be a class of cryptocurrencies that exhibits low price volatility relative to a benchmark. And that benchmark might be US dollars or euros or any other unit account. Or if the desire is stability against the price of goods and services, then there must be an index that stands proxy as the unit of account. But if you think about the problem we're trying to solve, there are at least two economic concepts behind demand for stablecoins. It would be currency mismatches and price stability. So if you step back from crypto for just a minute to convey the concept of currency mismatches, these are things that induce currency risk. So think about taking out a fixed rate mortgage loan to purchase a home. But instead of taking out the loan in your native currency, you borrow in a different currency, perhaps because the interest rate is lower. Now, in exchange for the lower interest rate, you've given up certainty about the cost of your mortgage each month in terms of your native currency where you generate your income. So fast forward a little bit and assume the interest rate moves against you. Nothing else has changed. You earn the same income, you live in the same house, same mortgage, same interest rate. But now the payment in terms of your native currency has increased substantially. So depending on the rest of your budget, that difference might constitute, the entirety of your disposable income. And it actually turns out that more than 1 million households suffered this exact fate in 2015 when the Swiss franc was unpegged from the euro and moved 16% in a month because borrowers from all over Europe had mortgages denominated in Swiss francs because they could get a lower interest rate. So this currency mismatch exposes the transaction participants to currency risk. And in this example, it combined a speculative investment on currency with a mortgage, right? So there was sort of a coupling of these two things. Now, in many transactions, people don't want to bear the additional currency risk through speculation, particularly if they can establish that speculative position independently. So I want to be clear that, saying we need a stable coin, it's not taking anything away from Bitcoin. It's just a different use case, right? So as you mentioned at the beginning, some people will point to, hyper Bitcoinization, where Bitcoin is the global reserve. And at that point, Bitcoin is the stable coin because everything's priced in Bitcoin. So, but even if that's your position, you have to acknowledge that we're a ways away from that. And perhaps there's a transitional role for a stable coin today. Now, you can hedge out this currency risk using Bitcoin futures, but it doesn't solve the problem entirely because futures might work for some transactions, but not others. So take a sale of a home. Anytime there's any contingency, you've got an issue because what if I enter a futures contract, but the house fails an inspection midway through the escrow period? Meanwhile, the price of Bitcoin has mooned, so I'm left with this loss on the futures, but no offsetting gain from the house sale. So contingent transactions are not good candidates for hedging with futures. Plus, most people just don't want to have to manage a futures position, just to use smart contracts and transact in cryptocurrencies. So this overarching issue is that we live in a world priced in fiat, which is colliding with smart contracts that require a crypto unit of account. This mismatch creates friction, which slows the adoption of tokens as a means of exchange. So prices in all currencies adjust over time. The issue is that they're not adjusting in lockstep. And it's important to understand that this stability problem is temporal in nature, right? So it's not a function of one currency being inflationary and another deflationary. It's that the rates of the inflation and the deflation are time varying, right? They don't move in the same amount at the same rate. If they did, it would be easier to solve. And so this mismatching, it adds uncertainty to decisions made today about prices and transactions in the future. And so by adding this currency risk, it acts as a friction to trade because what economists call the certainty equivalent is reduced. So this idea with stablecoins is to disentangle the ability to store and exchange value in the form of a token from the concomitant speculation on exchange rates, to try and decouple those two things. And there's all kinds of scenarios where this separation in time between the moment of contracting and the moment of value transfer occurs. So stablecoins are a more natural fit for credit products, for prediction markets, for transactions for goods that are priced in fiat and involve a time delay in delivery. So something as simple as buying a phone. Vitalik actually tweeted about this in December. What happens if you spend ETH and you purchase a phone, but then the price of ETH moves and the seller decides not to ship it, right? So I became interested in stablecoins at the same time I became interested in traditional asset tokens, because these assets generate recurring distributions like lease payments. But an even larger category of recurring payments is payroll. So what happens if payroll services want to utilize smart contracts? I think the volume of value transferred via payroll is underappreciated in this space. Consider this: Amazon, a very large retailer, right? They received $136 billion in payments last year. That sounds like a lot, right? But it's actually not a lot compared to the amount of value transferred through payroll systems. So ADP, one payroll processor, processed 1.35 trillion in payments last year. So payments in exchange for labor are one of the largest value transfers on earth. And recurring payments like salaries are much more likely to switch to a token-based system using stablecoins versus one where you've got currency mismatching. So those are the alternatives right now. So stablecoins allow people to store value in tokens without bearing currency risk. And regardless of how you want to construct your investment portfolio, even if you still want to, hold Bitcoin, stablecoins are a more natural fit for storing value that's expected to be spent in the near term, like the amount you might keep in your checking account. They're a unit of account with which people are already familiar. So to me, they are really the gateway in the transition from fiat to a token-based means of exchange for the broad economy. I think they represent one of the clearest paths to adoption in my view. So let's acknowledge that a universally accepted stablecoin is not here yet. There's lots of challenges. I'm not stating an opinion on whether the winner will look like a fiat-backed reserve like TrueUSD or ARC reserve currency, or a crypto-backed version like Maker, or an algorithmic version like Basis. There's going to be lots of speculation, and probably some of these will blow up spectacularly. But I think my bigger point is that the effort is worthwhile, because if we can find a structure that works, it will facilitate a migration to payments on crypto rails for a wide variety of financing activity that's still on the sidelines.
That's it for today. If you like what you heard and want to support the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you decide to leave us a review after subscribing, we'll send you a free Nomics t-shirt. Just hit us up on Twitter at username NomicsFinance after you've left the review, and we'll hook you up. You may also be interested in Nomics.com, our crypto market cap and pricing website. Check us out at Nomics.com, spelled Nomics. Now stick around for our legal disclaimer. All opinions expressed by podcast hosts or guests are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinion of Nomics or any other company. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as the basis for investment decisions. The producers, hosts, and guests of the show may maintain positions in the companies or assets discussed today.